Hi everybody, my name is Kevin Langford. I'm with Bicom Systems and we're doing VoIP for Dummies here. I'm going to take this on a different path. I'm going to twist this up a little bit. This is going to be a little bit of a sales for people that are not very knowledgeable about VoIP, what's involved, what needs to happen to plant the seed and get it going. A little bit what needs to happen on the technical side, and then we're going to dive a little bit more into the technical detail. But the ones that are actually currently doing VoIP right now, I'm going to want your opinions. Because one thing I've learned is everyone has a different style of doing things, and it's very interesting on how everyone has it. Because they will say, this is better than that, or my way is better than your way. And you know, in the technical world, that argument will always happen. So out of curiosity, show of hands, who currently is doing voice? All right, who's not? So why VoIP? Increased monthly revenues. It's a really easy revenues generation or cash grab, as we like to call it. One or more services or features that you're offering, you're adding on. So I like to always use food as an example. I like it. You got your hamburger. You go to McDonald's, Harvey's, Burger King, wherever. You throw cheese and bacon, the add-ons. They add up quick. So your customer, in their mind, when they're coming to you saying, hey, let's spend $15, $20 a month for a service. Well, let's just add this, that. Next thing you know, your ARPU, your average revenue per unit, has now jumped up to 30. And it's services that they want. So it's not something you're jamming down their throats. One extra service that you're offering to them will help reduce churn. It's harder to just pick up and move. We'll cover about that in a bit. You have an awesome advantage as a WISP or a network operator. And we'll dive into that a little bit more in a minute. So options for voice. Well, I'm going to build it myself or get someone to build it for me. My quick comments on that, there's nothing wrong with it if you know what you're doing. Problem is that if you've hired someone or a company, you're kind of tied to them no matter what. So the divorce part of that is not real simple if something goes wrong. Stacking up VMs of free PBX or the other ones out there in a VM cluster. I use the Jenga expression. It'll eventually fall over, too many of them, and it's just a mess. Acting as an agent where you're paid a commission to whatever telco you bring it into. That's one option for you. Reselling a solution where you buy it, where you buy it at X, let's just throw a number out there, for $10 and you mark it up to $20 or $30. Another option is, well, what I do is a purchase or renting a platform where you're bringing in the real money, but we'll dive more into a minute. So more revenue. Once it's up and running, it's working. Simple revenue, keeping the recurring coming in, right? You wake up, the money's there, just like the internet services. The voice is just there. Does not mean you ignore the customer. Keep them up with the features that are coming out. Let them know what's coming, because people like their toys. The margins are pretty big. For the ones that do it, out of curiosity, what's your average cost per subscriber? Sorry? No. The cost to you.
I'm not sure. That's on the back.
Anybody?
Almost $6 for residential.
Okay. What about business?
Business depends on how many lines, but generally a little bit more.
Okay. And that includes carrier costs? Okay. Anybody else? I'm just asking because one thing I've learned is it varies from parts of the country to other countries what your costs are. Because in Canada, I can tell you where I'm from, the costs are much higher than down here. But your termination costs are a fraction of a penny versus almost a penny up there. Then you have the add-ons like I mentioned, the burger, where you got your cheese and your bacon, you got unified communications, CRM integration, your mobility clients and all that stuff. So it's something you're going to give to them, and it's a proposition for them to stay with you. It's something that'll become addictive. Some unified communication platforms out there, once you let the user plays with it, they play with it, they fall in love with it, try to take it away from them. It's not going to be fun. So as mentioned, more features that are offered. You got the internet, you're adding voice. You got TV, I've seen people offer alarms. So again, voice is just a simple moneymaker. Help reduce churn. More services you offer with the add-ons, the harder it is for the customer to move away. Granted, porting is simple, but they're used to paying one bill. It's one phone call to make. They come to you at that one level. And again, sales and support, 1 point. You have 2 different carriers, 2 different providers. You have a phone provider and you got an internet provider. In a lot of cases, the finger pointing will happen if something goes wrong. If it's on your network, which we'll dive into in a few minutes, it's a huge advantage that you have, because it's a one-stop shop for sales and support for your customer. You have an awesome advantage. So who here is a WISP or a FISP or someone who has their own network that is currently doing voice? Okay. Those people there, you have a huge advantage. You control the network from point A to point B. A lot of the ITSPs and ISPs out there, it'll go from the phone through the internet, and who knows what's going to happen, to your switch, to your carrier. With what you guys have, it'll literally stay on net unless the user's at home, where you can do queuing, you can do prioritization, bandwidth reservation, and all the above to ensure the user has a great experience. So you get the less latency, everything stays within your network. And many of the other guys, they just don't have a network, so it's an advantage, and I can't stress that enough. Why put the switch off-site? Does anybody here have a switch off-site other than on their network? Or is you guys have, the ones that do have it, that are a WISP, that have it on their network? Have you guys noticed a difference? Sounds great. Where do I start? So for those that don't do voice, that would like to get into it, servers in your NOC, or you can have it hosted for you. But I would strongly urge putting it in your NOC. Virtualization and redundancy of some kind, a billing solution, because we all know Uncle Sam wants his money. Taxing in the States is very taxing. Unified communications, desktop and mobility is a very strong, popular buzzword that's happening nowadays, and it's something you should definitely dive into. SIP security. For those that are offering voice right now, who's been hacked? Anybody?
They try.
Okay, who's had a lot of fraud calls go through?
No, we say fraud.
I'm sorry?
We say fraud calls. They'll pick a VoIP phone and they'll just start handling it.
Sure. But you guys not had a system compromised? Okay. I've seen customers with different platforms out there not have proper security, not even fail to ban or any of the names out there. System gets compromised and we all know what happens, a really expensive bill. So security and call quality assurance is huge. Then you got the switch and a voice wholesale carrier. Very important with your carrier. I'm not sure about the laws in the States, but I know in Canada they're very stringent. You need to have E911. So make sure your carrier has that, or you have an option for you. Now this is a question I have for you guys. Is it per minute or per trunk? What do you guys prefer? Because I've noticed some people like to go per minute, and some carriers offer per trunk. What's your advantages over? In my personal preference, I think per minute's the best on the termination origination, but does someone disagree with me on that?
We do per trunk.
Okay.
That aired and fixed it.
Okay, sorry, let me change that. Your carrier, what they bill you.
Oh,
When you subscribe to your carrier, are they billing you per minute or are they billing you per trunk?
depending on for our business one or residential.
Okay. And a smooth porting process with some of the carriers out there I've learned, different parts of the world, it's a challenge. So find a carrier you're very comfortable with for the porting. Hardware. There's so many manufacturers out there. Try to stick with one or two of them. From experience, it's ideal. I know we're not supposed to commercialize this, but there's a few of them out there. I'm not going to start dropping names. I'm not endorsed by any of them, but zero-touch auto provisioning is huge, where you can drop ship a phone to a customer. All they have to do is factory reset if something's working. Your switch has auto provisioning, and things will work for you. Trying to walk someone through that's technology not there to program a phone, you'll probably take a good hour, and what's your time worth? Ensure the vendor you're dealing with has a sufficient stock. Price is great, but make sure the stock and a warranty process is there. Customers network. This is where I need your input. Do you control the firewall? Show of hands, those that do voice. Who controls the firewall and who lets the customer deal with it? So those that control it, show of hands. I know the reasons, but I want to hear it from you. Why do you lock it down?
My network admin said to.
Sorry?
My network admin said to.
All right. Sir?
I actually work for an MSP, and we're starting the WISP, so from the MSP side, I control it.
Okay. Other hands? Anybody else that lock it down? Is there any advantages out there to let them control it? Now, for those that currently offer voice that control the network, how do you guys ensure the call quality? You got VLANing, dedicated runs. So within an office environment, sometimes I'll see people have one for data, one for voice from the desk. Personally, that's what I'm a fan for. If you have it, run with it. QoS within the network, bandwidth reservation, and dedicated port on a router. I'm looking for your experience here because this is what you guys have done. And this is where I want to do a sharing session as well, where the network, everyone has their opinion, and I would love to hear it. I'm sure everyone else will take some ideas and run with it. So is anybody willing to share their experience and opinion on this?
We've always separated data and the
Okay? Go ahead.
No, we've always basically separated the data and the VoIP, throughout the location.
Okay.
Basically that all goes back to the head end of the router and then your single line out.
How do you do it from the router to you? Bandwidth reservation, queuing?
Both, QoS and the radios were a WISP, so, we'll set that. There are some customers, we actually do have a VLAN going out, so. But it just really depends on the customer. Residential, it's kind of a, yeah, here you go. You get what you get.
Okay. Perfect, thank you. Anybody else?
So we'll set up QoS rules on our routers and switches, put voice on a separate VLAN. One thing we run into with residential customers is they're connecting with PPPoE, and so what we'll do is try to separate the voice traffic from PPPoE before it leaves out their radio so we can prioritize it.
Anybody else? This is to share information. There's one thing I've learned, everyone has an opinion on this topic. Well, fortunately this was what I had. It was more of a exchange, looking to see if people were able to interact. Is anybody willing to share an experience that they have, some knowledge, insight? Anybody?
I have a very specific question.
Sure. Sure.
All right, so we tried to deploy VoIP a couple years ago and ended up the exact opposite of everything else. We ended up losing money and losing customers over it. We're MikroTik routed, Ubiquity for the antennas, and I haven't found anybody that can tell me how to control the quality and get rid of the ghosts.
Define ghosts.
Intermittent call quality that can never be tracked.
Do you have bandwidth reservation? Sorry.
We do simple queues for speed limiting the customers on the MikroTik, and then we do a separate queue for VoIP based on destination IP address.
As a customer of voice 7-8 years ago, when I was a manager for a Canadian football team, what we did is we had our MikroTik router. We had 2 ports, and it was actually a WISP that was providing us the data. They provided us a 60 meg symmetrical. We had the data on port 1, 55, locked down. Port 2 was the voice. So if you do bandwidth reservation, sir, I think that most likely will fix your problem. The queues are so much, but if the radio's overworked on both points, correct me if I'm wrong, that most likely will fix your problem. Someone else? Saw a hand earlier, another hand? Go ahead, please.
No, that was just my concern too, is I think that's what a lot of people are looking for, is how do we set QoS up properly? do you just do it via VLAN and keep it that way? So, any,
A single phone call, G711, 100 kilobits. You got 729, but there's no real need unless, they have poor bandwidth. Absolutely. 100K is, 100K is plenty per call. Was there anybody else? Questions? Opinions? Good question. How is your network set up? How big is your network? If it was me, I'd probably have 2 sites within your network and possibly a third on the cloud as a ultimate last resource. Trying to keep everything within your network and controlled. Because I don't know how you guys work via how many gigs you guys pay or throughput or capacity. So keeping it off the network, offside the external network as much as possible is ideal. Okay. We have the servers for the switches, right? Then you got the virtualization where this is going to sit on. We all know hardware is going to die, right? Things happen. So one server dies, another one can pick up. Some level of redundancy somewhere. You got the class 5 switch, the multi-tenant, where you have each customer as a tenant. You get your security, you get your carriers. So you can have more than one. In a lot of cases, right? A lot of switches out there are carrier agnostic, and billing platform. And you're off to the races, really. There's a lot of providers out there that offer solutions that are very simple. Once you start up, they'll point you in the right direction. Say you need this, you need this. It doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be on someone else's cloud where it's going out there and coming back, where you can't control the network, you can't control the bandwidth. Therefore, you have call quality issues like the gentleman's back there were mentioning. Was there any other insight? Sir? I just take that one step back. On the knock side of the fence, I'm assuming you guys do have UPSs, and that was an assumption, and I apologize. As far as the user, you can get ATAs out there that do have battery backup built in. If it is crucial enough, you can get a $65-ish APC UPS.
So there's a battery, like, the way it's set up so that it wouldn't require, what comes from, I'm very new to the terminology.
That's totally fine. That's what we're here for.
The knock, I guess, is what it would be, so the power would come from that, so if the power not to go off, the knock, for the phone not to work.
Your knock would have to get knocked out.
Correct, yeah. I guess, because I used to install it for a cable company,
Mhm.
and the power was supplied in the home with the phone.
Yes.
So is that the same way with this?
Yes. So the power within the house is supplied to a UPS battery of some kind, right? If it's for people that absolutely need to have a phone that works. And then the ATA or the device will plug into the UPS. You don't need a monster UPS for 1 or 2 devices.
Yeah, but so there should be like, for like a life alert or something.
Yes.
Like that, there should be some kind of battery.
Absolutely.
backup to that phone so that when the power goes out, they're knocked out.
Yep. And a lot of customers out there will tell the customer, hey, you have no power, this is not going to work. However, I can sell you this UPS, that'll give you 2 hours, 6 hours, or 12 hours, right? And for those people that are on life alert that do need this because their life is on the line, they will see that as an investment because they're saving money going on to voice.
Most people have an issue with paying that to someone user.
The phones themselves, I'm not aware of any manufacturers out there that have battery built in. As far as an ATA, those little boxes where you plug a phone into, like your analog cordless phones, I have seen some out there.
Compliance-wise, if you do VoIP, each ATA box has to have a sticker on it for 911 that says, if you lose your internet or phone for any reason due to any reason, you will not have 911. And you have to have the customer agree to that in a separate line on a contract, even if you don't have any contract service negotiations, you have to have that in their signature in a document with their file to be compliant.
The lady here mentioned was, with that sticker, you also got to make clear to them that that ATA can be plugged into any internet source. So if they physically move it from one house to the other and they do dial 911, they need to make sure they update their records as well. Because you'll have, who knows what they're calling 911 for. Hello, there's someone trying to break into my house. Well, you've moved 6 houses down and the police are coming to your door. They're going to come thump a door down. And someone's going to be liable. Is there any other, please? How they do it, there's a lot of options out there. VMware is one of them. There's a lot of virtualization platforms out there. I know we have it, but I'm trying to not commercialize it. If it's that crucial for them, they'll have a DSL line or they'll have something as a backup. Yeah. But in a lot of cases, if it's a WISP, as long as the network's up, there'll be some level of connectivity. I've even seen it to an extreme degree where they'll actually have a local PBX as well, of some kind, of some flavor that they're registering to. And that's actually tied to, exactly. Dealing with one of the customers I know in Canada, they have a local PBX that all the phones register to, and there's an analog line going right into it. So in the event 911 needs to be called, you do not have to rely exactly on the internet. Was there anything else? Please.
Something that is for the guys that haven't done it at all. I'd recommend looking into the business side of it more than residential, honestly. There's definitely money in residential phones, but I have business customers that pay me over $1,000 a month for phone service on just, it adds up fast. So look at finding a good phone, a good brand of phones, stuff like that. And when you start talking about 100 phones to one customer, you're looking at making thousands of dollars off of those customers. The money definitely adds up. All the discussion we've had so far was on more residential side, but the business side of things is really what you probably need to be targeting if you're looking at making money on phones. You have $10,000 customers. You probably just made more than you're going to make off several thousand residential customers combined. So it adds up a lot quicker when you start thinking about the numbers. It's where you're going to start seeing your return on investment on, switches, hardware, the backbone of the phone system. Look at the best solution for offering business services. That's really where, there's definitely money in residential phones, but I would definitely look into the business side of revenue on that if you're really considering getting into the phones, and look at the bigger picture there probably. So kind of a marketing company wide. I think that, we took a stand on our company. My job is business solutions manager at our company, and so we have an entire department dedicated just to business sales and business support and installation stuff. So we cover 19 counties, several thousand square miles. So we have thousands of businesses underneath our network that we weren't really getting the business, the service to that we needed to. So we went the next level and created that. So that's something that, from another standpoint that, WISPs definitely have available to them. That has nothing to do with voice, but it's, there's thousands of businesses, and most of you are probably covering a lot of DSL networks and where they're getting terrible service. So it's, on average, a phone customer that switches to us on what we can make good money on saves half of their money. So if I switch a business to a pretty lucrative for me plan, I'm still saving them probably half their cost and giving them a lot more features than they ever could have dreamed of. So that's from a marketing standpoint, we definitely could do better ourselves, but I would come up with a good business platform company-wide that encourages businesses to want your products, and, phone systems just kind of ties into it. It's, we push phones with every business customer we roll into, and we have close to 30 employees right now, so we're growing we're always hiring right now, but that's kind of where we're at. But that's kind of what I would say is just pursue the business side of it, is especially on phones. We have several hundred phone customers on residential, but we'll be making more off of our not several hundred, you don't need as many business customers to really start stacking that revenue up and making it worth it. Your ARPU on a business customer is going to be closer to $200 to $300 versus a residential in the $60 to $100 range on most cases. So that's what we kind of try to shoot our average business account towards, is that $200 to $300 range, and really make those customers make us some money. And that's finding the best products to put with that. Business phones was definitely one that we had to get serious on, because we saw the how can we get this customer paying us more than that $100 internet package, or if you can make that a $100 internet package and a PBX system package worth $200 a month, you just tripled your money without hardly changing your cost at all for that customer. So that's where the voice side of that for business. If you've got the potential in your network, if you're in a smaller network where you don't have as much business capability, I could see that being a little bit different. And I've talked to people this week that have, only maybe cover a couple counties. You're not going to have near as many businesses. We have, I don't know how many cities, probably 50, 60 cities underneath our network that have just hundreds of businesses. So there's a lot of potential out there. So
One thing I'd like to add, though, you got roughly how many business customers do you have?
We have enterprise level, and then we have, I wouldn't know, because we don't split them up that way.
Sure.
We have a lot of, at-home businesses.
And this is a loaded question. Are they happy with your service?
Yeah.
Tell them to put their money where their mouth is. Referral. Seriously. One person will tell so many people about great service. Hey, did you know I got wireless from ABC Wireless? They got great phone service. Throw it on your invoice. I've got customers, I've thrown that suggestion at them. And they usually get 1 or 2 leads a month that turn into a business just by, putting something at the footer of an invoice, or when they speak with a customer, ask for a referral. Don't be afraid to do so.
We do a lot of referrals. It's just getting that customer.
Entice them with money. Entice them with money. Saying, hey, if you bring me a $200 a month customer, I'll give you a $200 bill credit, or half of that. You pick what you wish. And you know what? They'll do it because they're happy. They'll sell for you. And what's your marketing cost really, other than that half month or the month you give away? Anybody else have issues that they want to talk about or questions? You got lots of people with experience here.
I was going to say, for business, VoIP is a very feature-rich environment. You don't have to go out and spend $30,000 on a PBX to get all the benefits and more. So it's a very good selling point for businesses, because you can do a lot more with that than you can with, the most of the PBXs they're going to buy.
Absolutely. You're saving the money, and exactly, you're saving the money, and they're not having to pay that $2,000, $6,000, $10,000 a year maintenance support contract. They don't have to worry about a hardware that's going to die every 10 years on the wall. They don't have to worry about features that are outdated. This is people that are network operators. This is a huge benefit for you if you're not on the bandwagon. It's time to seriously look into it. And the ones that have it have had issues. There's a lot of vendors downstairs. Please feel free to speak to whoever. I'm sorry?
Is that mostly automated then?
It depends on which carrier you're with. I can tell you because I deal with ports in the UK, and I just pull my hair out. It's not fun. As far as the United States, I've not done it hands-on, but you'll need an LOA, letter of agency, and there is a process. But with whatever carrier you're with, they will lay it out to you. Some of them is manual, where you have to fill out paper, fax it in, and they'll get back to you. Some of them, there's a form, electronic form you fill out, or some kind of API on their site where you do it. So this is where I mentioned earlier, you got to find a carrier out there that suits your needs. So if you want to build the back end or a front end that talks from your PBX to their API to make your life easier, great. If you're fine filling out a form, as you're only doing, 4, 5, 6 a month, that's your option. But you'd have to find a carrier that'll support it. Even though the local incumbent, I'm not sure what the laws are in the States, but I know the local carrier, I'm sure they have some legal obligation to allow the port to happen. You might have to, that's why I'm bringing this up. You know, they might have to, they don't. Maybe you have to get some services. You get a PRI from them for the inbound. And as far as termination, you use SIP or you use the PRI for termination. That there's, you know, each situation is unique. I know there's Windstream out there that does a lot of these rural areas for porting. So they have a good chance of pulling those C bands and B bands and D bands for you, but can't fully promise it. Does anybody else any experiences? Sure.
We've got a few customers. I mean, especially if you get a customer that's got, 5, 10, 15 phones or more. All you need their current phone number for is inbound traffic. If you're putting them on a SIP account outbound, you can have, you just get, that goes out of your system on whatever phone number you want. You can have that recognized by the system as their number anyways. Outbound caller ID shows whatever you want it to be. We have a few customers that we've had to go through their current carrier just because it couldn't be ported. It was one of those old telco numbers that was bought and couldn't be ported. So then, from an issue on that standpoint, just all you have to do is have those calls forwarded to your system, and those you're good to go. It's not as, in most cases, you're going to be saving them so much money off of their paying. I've had businesses that paid $5,000-$6,000 to have an analog system put in a week before I show up. I show up with another $4,000 PBX system and tell them that they can take unlimited call traffic instead of 4 in their five-man sales office, and they're already sold. Doesn't even matter what they're, I'm saving them $300 a month, and they can now take unlimited calls instead of 4. I had one recently. They had 5 people in their office in a sales office with 4 phone lines coming in the building. They're paying like $600 a month to CenturyLink. So they're just easy sells. I mean, this, like you said, this should sell itself if you have a good product. It's but those are some easy fixes on your porting. Is just have that call forwarded. Whether you can usually do it yourself. Most carriers, you can hit whatever code on their system. You can usually Google the carrier's code for it even, but you can forward your calls to your basically your own number that you put on there. Doesn't matter if it's even local. So if you can't get a local number there, you can put whatever number you want on it, and just have those calls forwarded and set their outbound to take care of that. So.
And one thing I wanted to add is, if you're call forwarding a number and it's long distance and the carrier is charging you through the nose, toll free. Get a toll free and forward it to that. This toll free is fractions of a penny. It's probably a heck of a lot cheaper than whatever the long distance rate is. What about hardware manufacturers for phones? What do you guys typically use? Yealink? Okay. Anybody else other than Yealink? What do you like Polycom? I'm sorry?
Some of the graphics on them are better than Yealink
Okay.
that we found.
Okay.
Or
Snom? Grandstream?
cheaper cost.
Anybody else? Grandstream? Cisco? Which series? The SPAs? Okay. What about T38? That's probably a touchy subject. Who here is having issues with T38? There are some solutions out there. T38 is the faxing language, or the new one. So you get some ATAs out there that support T38, and as long as your carrier does and your PBX does, and you got a good quality line, you're almost 3 nines, 4 nines. But I got some customers out there using OB-High devices. They're knock smack on. Anybody have T38 experiences they want to share?
So, we, as far as the VoIP system goes, we do 2 different sides. The business side of things and the full-on setup like he was talking about. And then on the residential side of things, we use the little Seeing Pilot R200s with the ATA built in. and then we'll wire back into the customer's house. The only problems I've had with that, like you said, the fax line issues, you know, a customer that had like a small office, home office, we've had to go back and turn off the ATA on the little CN pilot and use the little Cisco ATA instead, because it seemed to handle the fax T38 traffic better. That's really all I had.
Just make sure the ATA also has the T38 feature turned on, because most of them have it turned off by default and it's hidden. We're coming up to the end. Is there any other things people want to share? Issues, marketing, sales, technical? Oh, thank you for your time, folks.